Treasure is anything precious and hidden. The early Christian idea of what was precious differed noticeably from the abstract and allegorical spiritual treasures of the philosophizing churchmen of a later time. The patristic writers, trained in the schools, are offended and annoyed by the way in which many Christians cling to the old literalism of the early church. When primitive Christians thought of a treasure, it had to be something real and tangible. Theirs was the tradition of the Jews before them, for whom the delights of the other world, though including spiritual and intellectual joys, are most tangible delights of a completely pleasing physical and social environment. Much has been written about early Christian and Jewish concepts of time, but where the other world is concerned, the ideas of space are at least equally important. With what care Luke tells us exactly where the angel stood in the temple and exactly where on the map he found Mary. What tireless comings and goings and what constant concern with being in one place or another fill the pages of the Gospels. If we are not to think in terms of real time and place, why this persistent use of familiar words that suggest nothing else? Scholars have pointed out that it is impossible to take such formulaic expressions as to visit the earth and he went and preached, referring to the descensus, in any but the most literal sense. The insistence of our sources on depicting the hereafter in terms of places is a constant reminder that heaven is not only a state, but a place. True, it is so far away that our sun and all the world of men look like nothing but a tiny speck of dust, because of the vast distance at which it is removed. But for all that, it is still the same universe, and all made of the same basic materials. This preoccupation with locus assumes a plurality of worlds, and indeed in our treasure texts we often find worlds, earths, and cosmoses in the plural. It is only the fallen angels, in fact, led by the blind Samael, who insist, "We are alone, and there is none beside us." To the sons of light, on the other hand, there is opened up the grandiose vision of the worlds, united in the common knowledge of Him who made them, exchanging joyful and affectionate messages as they keep faith with one another in the common plan and talk to each other and establish concord, each contributing something of its own to the common interest. The members of the vast complex are kept in perfect accord by the sustaining Word of God, which reaches all alike, since it possesses, through the power of the treasure, the capacity for traveling for unlimited distances with inexpressible speed. This Word is also the Son, who has betaken himself to the numberless hidden worlds which have come to know him. The messages may also be borne by special messengers and inspectors, angels with special assignments and marvelous powers of getting around, who constantly go forth on their missions and return with their reports. With all its perfect unity and harmony, the system presents a scene not of monotonous uniformity, but rather of endless and delightful variety. They are all different one from the other, but he hath not made any one of them superfluous. The one exchangeth what is good in it with the other. At a new creation there is a reshuffling of elements, like the rearranging of notes in the musical scale to make a new composition. It is even suggested, as we have noted, that old worlds may be dismantled to supply stuff for the making of newer and better ones. Beginning with the very old Egyptian idea that the creation of the world was really a recreation by transforming substances that had already been used in the creation of other worlds, the Jewish and Christian apocryphal writers envisage a process by which the stuff of worlds is alternately organized into new stars and planets, and when these have served their time, scrapped, decontaminated, and reused in yet more new worlds. This ur-stuff that is being constantly recycled is the tohu vavohu of some Jewish teachers, according to Weiss, who saw the ultimate forms of matter in fire and ice. Likewise, according to the same authority, the world holocaust of the Stoics was merely a necessary preparation for the making of new worlds from old materials. The whole thrust of Weiss's book is that until the early Christian apologists, we find no trace anywhere of the doctrine of creatio ex nihilo, the creation being everywhere conceived of as the act of organizing matter unorganized, bringing order from disorder, the basic prerequisites for the work being space and unorganized matter. And so we have in the Pistis Sophia, continuing the Egyptian teachings, the picture of a constant remixing going on in the universe in which old, worn-out, contaminated substances, the refuse of worn-out worlds and kingdoms, is first thrown out on the scrap heap and returned to chaos as dead matter, then melted down in a dissolving fire for many years, by which all the impurities are removed from it, and by which it is improved and is ready to be poured from one kind of body into another. This whole process, by which souls as well as substances are thrown back into the mixing, is under the supervision of Melchizedek, the great reprocessor, purifier, and preparer of worlds. He takes over the refuse of defunct worlds or souls, and under his supervision 5 great archons process, literally knead, it, separating out its different components, each one specializing in particular elements, which they thus recombine in unique and original combinations so that no new world or soul is exactly like any other. Here there is no waste and no shortage. If any were superfluous or any lacking, the whole body would suffer, for the worlds counterpoise one another like the elements of a single organism. The worlds go on forever. They come and cease not. They ever increase and are multiplied, yet are not brought to an end, nor do they decrease. It was essential to the plan that all physical things should pass away. This idea is depicted by the ancient Egyptian symbol of the Ouroboros, the serpent with his tail in his mouth, representing the frustration of material things or matter consuming itself by entropy. Indeed, the Pistis Sophia describes the Ouroboros, which means feeding on its own tail, in terms of the heat death, when it reports that fire and ice are the end of all things, since ultimate heat and ultimate cold both mean an end to substance. Though matter is replaced through an endless cycle of creations and dissolution, only spirit retains conscious identity, so that, strictly speaking, only progeny is immortal, each mounting up from world to world, acquiring ever more treasure while progressing toward his perfection, which awaits them all. When the apostles formed a prayer circle, all clothed in garments of white linen, Jesus, standing at the altar, began the prayer by facing the 4 directions and crying in an unknown tongue, I-A-O, I-A-O, I-A-O. The Pistis Sophia interprets the 3 letters of this word as signifying 1. Iota, because the universe took form at the creation. 2. Alpha, because in the normal course of things it will revert to its original state, alpha representing a cycle. 3. Omega, because the story is not going to end there, since all things are tending towards a higher perfection. The perfection of everything is going to happen, that is, syntropy. The eternal process is thus not a static one, but requires endless expansion of the universe, since each dispensation is outgoing, tending to separation and emanation, that is, fissure, so that an endless process in the uncontainable fills the boundless. This is the Egyptian paradox of expanding circles of life that go on to fill the physical universe and then go on without end. Such a thing is possible because of a force that is primal and self-existent, having no dependence on other matter or its qualities. This is that light stream that no power is able to hold down and no matter is able to control in any way. On the contrary, it is this light that imposes form and order on all else. It is the spark by which Melchizedek organizes new worlds. It is the light that purifies contaminated substances, and the light that enables dead matter to live. Reduced to its simplest form, creation is the action of light upon matter. Matter of itself has no power, being burnt out energy, but light reactivates it. Matter is incapable of changing itself. It has no desire to, and so light forces it into the recycling process where it can again work upon it, for light is the organizing principle. If Melchizedek is in charge of organizing worlds, it is Michael and Gabriel who direct the outpouring of light to those parts of chaos where it is needed. As light emanates out into space in all directions, it does not weaken but mysteriously increases more and more, not stopping as long as there is a space to fill. In each world is a gathering of light, and as each is the product of a drive toward expansion, each becomes a source of new expansion, having its part in the expansion of the universe. The mere mechanics of the creation process, as described in our treasure texts, display truly remarkable scientific insight. For the making of the world, the first requirements, we are told, are a segment of empty space, pure and unencumbered, and a supply of primordial matter to work with. Mere empty space and inert matter are, however, forbidding and profitless things in themselves, disturbing and even dangerous things for humans to be involved with. Contemplating them, the mind is seized with vertigo until some foothold is found in the void. The order and stability of a foundation are achieved through the operation of a spark. The spark is sometimes defined as a small idea that comes forth from God and makes all the difference between what lives and what does not. Compared with it, all the worlds are but as a shadow, since it is the spark whose light moves all material things. It is the ultimate particle, the enos, which came from the Father of those who are without beginning, emanating from the treasure house of light, from which all life and power is ultimately derived. Thanks to the vivifying and organizing power of the spark, we find throughout the cosmos an infinity of dwelling places, either occupied or awaiting tenants. These are colonized by migrants from previously established dwelling places, or worlds, all going back ultimately to a single original center. The colonizing process is called planting, and those spirits that bring their treasures to a new world are called plants, more rarely seeds, of their father or planter in another world. Every planting goes out from a treasure house, either as the essential material elements or as the colonizers themselves, who come from a sort of mustering area called the treasure house of souls. With its planting completed, a new world is in business. A new treasury has been established from which new sparks may go forth in all directions to start the process anew in ever new spaces. God wants every man to plant a planting. Nay, he has promised that those who keep his law may also become creators of worlds. But keeping the law requires following the divine pattern in every point. In taking the treasure to a new world, the sent one, who follows hard on the heels of the colonists, seeks nothing so much as complete identity with the one who sent him. Hence, from first to last, one mind alone dominates the whole boundless complex. Because each planting is completely dependent on its treasure house or home base, the system never breaks up into independent systems. In this patriarchal order, all remains forever identified with the Father, from whom all ultimately come forth. We on earth are not aware of all this because we comprehend only what we are like. Not only is God rendered invisible by the impenetrable veil of light that surrounds him, but he has purposely placed veils between the worlds, that all treasures may be hid from those who do not seek them in the proper way. On the other side of the veil of the temple lay the secrets of heaven, the celestial spaces that know no bounds, and all that they contain. The veil quarantines this polluted world mercifully from the rest. Beyond the veil are the heavens, and that goes for other worlds as well as this one, for each is shut off by its veil, for there are eons and veils and firmaments. He made a veil for their worlds, surrounding them like a wall. Behind the ultimate veil sits the Father of the treasury of light, who is separated from all others by the veils, a veil being that which separates that which is above from that which is below. When a cycle has been completed in the existence of things, the great Lord of hosts, the good, looks out from behind the veil, and all that has gone before is dissolved and passes into oblivion. Only the qualified can pass by one of these veils, of course. When Pistis Sophia presumed to look behind the veil before she was ready, she promptly fell from her former glory. Only Jesus has passed through all the veils and all the degrees of glory and authority. As one grows in faith, more and more is revealed, until finally the watchers move the veils aside and you enter into the presence of the Father, who gives you his name and his seal. These veils seem to serve as protecting as well as confining fences around the worlds. The light of the sun in its true nature is not seen in this place, we are told, because it passes through many veils and regions before reaching us. Its protective function is represented by a wonderful superbird called the guardian of the inhabited earth, because by spreading out his wings he absorbs the fire-like rays of the sun. If he did not absorb them, the human race could not survive, nor any other form of life. On a wing of the bird is an inscription declaring, "Neither earth nor heaven begot me, but the wings of fire." Baruch was informed by an angel that this bird is the phoenix, the sunbird, which feeds on the manna of heaven and the dews of earth. It blocks the sun with its wings outspread, suggesting solar prominences or zodiacal light. At any rate, it is an interesting example of how the ancients explain things that most men cannot see or comprehend in terms of things they can. The plan calls for universal participation in the accumulation of treasure in a course of eternal progression. The treasures in the heavens is heady stuff. E. L. Charbonnier has observed that the discovery that man really belongs to the same family as God, to share in the same kind of existence which God himself enjoys, is like learning that one has won the sweepstakes. The Evangelium is good news, the only good news, in fact, since all else ends in nothing. But it is also news, the sort of thing, as C.S. Lewis points out, that no human being could possibly have invented. Granted that the treasures in the heavens are something totally alien to human experience, something that eye hath not seen nor ear heard, neither hath entered into the heart of man, they must be none the less real. For the plan of salvation, as E. Sagan has recently put it, only exists when we are dealing with reality, not with artificial contrivances. As Hesse notes, we are only interested in what really took place, all the rest being of little or no concern whatever. As in the religion of Egypt, as we are now discovering. This attitude, diametrically opposite to that of Christian and Jewish scholars in the past, is gaining ground today. The old literalism has been dismissed as Gnostic, and indeed much of the appeal of Gnosticism lay in its exploitation of certain cosmist aspects of early Christian teaching. But the basic teachings of Gnosticism and Neoplatonism were spiritualized concepts that followed the prevailing line of the schools and ran directly counter to the old literalism of the treasures of heaven. While our sources contain extremely confused and contradictory records of creation, all seem to betray a single organic foundation. And while the relationship between them all still remains to be established, it becomes clearer every day that there was a relationship. The cosmist idea is not the monopoly of any group, Gnostic or otherwise. Indeed, cosmism was essentially anti-Gnostic. The doctors of the Christians and the Jews who adopted the Neoplatonic and Gnostic ideas of the schools opposed the old literalism with all their might, so that to this day cosmism has remained the very essence of heresy. Still, the very fathers who opposed the old teaching admitted that it was the original faith of the saints, and they could not rid themselves of it without a real struggle. In view of its age, its universality, its consistency, and its scientific and aesthetic appeal, the doctrine of the treasures in the heavens should be studied more closely than it has been. What we have presented in intensely concentrated form is enough to show that references to treasures in religious writings may well conceal far more than a mere figure of speech.
This is the end of this recording. Thank you for being with us. For additional information on this and other FARMS publications, call FARMS at 1-800-327-6715, 1-800-FARMS-15. You can also reach our website at farmsresearch.com or visit your local LDS bookstore.